and welcome back to the final episode of 12 Steps to Poker Heaven, the series that shows you the 12 ways to becoming a better poker player. I'm Carmel Thomas, and with me today for the very last time is the very great player himself, Mr. Grupp Smith.
Oh, thank you very much, Carmel. Kind words. I can tell you I'm literally aflame with enthusiasm. Still quite a lot to learn if you want to be a winner.
So I think pay attention today is the key.
That's it.
Throughout this series, we've taken you on a journey throughout poker. We've shown you the key areas and also many examples from great different tournaments. You've seen some great plays from top professionals such as Gus Hansen and Dave the Devilfish Ulliott.
Yes, we have been on a thorough voyage through poker, and this is the final hurdle. Keep paying attention, though, because there will be some valuable lessons in the programme ahead. So far, we've covered pre-flop play, post-flop play, heads-up, how to read tails, how to bluff, even game theory, the full armoury of knowledge you're going to need to be a very successful poker player. But don't switch off your attention just yet, because in this episode, there'll be even more valuable nuggets of knowledge.
Absolutely, and I've learned a lot myself over the series, so you're obviously a very good teacher.
Well, that is a proud boast, and I shall be getting the chips and the cards out later on. We'll see just how apt a pupil you are.
Absolutely. Well, let's find out exactly what the final 2 steps are all about.
Coming up in our final show, we'll have Step 11, how to win at tournament poker. Now, this is the holy grail. It really is the Grand Prix of poker. Then in Step 12, we'll be looking at the importance of revision. And I don't just mean reading books. It's constantly analysing how you've played hands, how people have played hands against you in the quest to become a better player. Because remember, poker only takes a few hours to learn, but it does take a lifetime to master.
So then, what are the essential ingredients that you need in order to win a poker tournament?
Well, it doesn't really matter if you're playing in the biggest tournament in the world, say the main event at the World Series with 8,000 runners, or you're just gathered around your kitchen table with 7 of your pals. There are 3 things you need to have on board if you're going to profit in tournament situations, and that is skill, luck and experience. Skill, it's pretty obvious. You've got to get good at putting your opponents on hands, at knowing when the situation is right to raise, at learning positional play, how to be aggressive. These things you'll accumulate, but they are essential. Luck mustn't be overlooked. In a tournament situation, it's usually quite short term. It can be just one day. The longest tournament in the world probably only lasts 5 days. So it's not really a very great stretch of time. If you were to play for 10 years, of course the best player in the world will end up with all the money, because that length of time takes the element of luck out of it. But in a short-term situation, it's really important to be lucky. And then lastly, experience. You've got to give yourself a bankroll and play with it. It doesn't matter if you lose your bankroll. You've got to think of it as paying for your university education. You're using this money to learn. And the more experience you get, the better you will be at spotting tails, the better you will be at reading your opponents, and the better you'll understand the game. And then, of course, once you've got your degree in poker, you can go to work as a pro.
Everything we've discussed so far is crucial to win a tournament. But what are your objectives when you sit down at a tournament?
Well, when you sit down, you should have 2 things in your mind. The first is survival. You don't want to make any silly mistakes early. Remember, at the beginning of a tournament, the blinds are relatively low compared to the size of your chip stack. So you don't want to be busting any particularly aggressive moves, because you'll be taking a big risk to win what's usually a very small amount. The second, though, is accumulation. As those blinds go up every half hour or hour, depending on the structure, they'll be worth winning. They'll be juicier apples hanging from the tree. So they are worth competing for. And remember, you're not going to win a tournament by checking and being passive. Sooner or later, you've got to make some plays. And
no matter where you're playing, there's certain principles you should abide by.
That's absolutely correct. The first thing to watch out for is playing too many hands. Now, you're at a poker table, you want to gamble. That doesn't mean you should be getting involved all the time. If you find that you're playing more than, say, 20% of the hands, especially early on in the tournament, then you are asking to be sandbagged. Somebody sooner or later is going to be trapping you with a much better hand, because no one's that lucky. You can't keep entering pots and expect to get lucky. So be a little bit circumspect early on. Then we get to something called the gap concept. Now, this is a very useful piece of poker theory. Essentially, it means that if somebody calls a bet from you, they've usually got a better hand. So let's say I'm in late middle position and I lead off the betting. I make a raise with ace-8. Somebody folds, but then somebody calls me. Well, they're not going to call with a worse hand than ace-8 unless they're a very loose player. So a little alarm bell should go off in your head. Now, if you see a flop and if you think they're a weak player and they've missed it, then sure, have a continuation bet, try and knock them out. But if it came down, say, with an ace in it, then suddenly your ace-8 looks pretty weak, because this guy may have been calling you with an ace, and if he had an ace, it's a better ace than yours. So you've got to be mentally alert, always on your toes.
Great, well, let's take a look at a couple of examples.
Action from the 2006 British Poker Open here, a star-studded table. Noah Bokin from the Netherlands has the button. George Fraser, first to act, gets out of the way. Gary Jones follows suit, and now John Gale, a bracelet winner in 2006 out in Las Vegas, while he reaches for chips and decided to bump it up with the King-Queen.
Raise to 11 in total.
Noah has a playable hand if there hadn't been a raise, but doesn't like his Queen 10. But look at Hansen. He's raised it up with jacks.
Now should Koresh fold here because there's someone to act behind him?
Yes, that's right. Koresh would have liked his sevens pre-flop. He's seen Hansen, an aggressive player, raise him. Now, maybe if it was just Gus, he could call with those sevens. But with Gale, who's already raised into this spot, still to act behind him, and possibly about to go all in, that would be a situation Koresh wouldn't fancy with just pocket sevens. And as we can see, he made the right decision. Now it's just down to John Gale. Does he think Gus is making one of his famous moves with low cards? This actually would be pretty much a coin toss. Jacks against King-Queen.
You're too dangerous to double up.
Gus could equally have ace-king, so that's a very, very good lay down. This is a hand from later in that very same tournament. You see George Fraser on the button.
All in. All in.
He's got a Jack-Queen offsuit, and he is putting it all in. All you can eat, says George. It's not the strongest hand, but he's getting short stacked. Now, Gary Jones has picked up pocket fours. Gary's got more chips than everybody else, and he should really just call here, because there's enough in there to frighten off Noah, unless Noah has a hand. Now, we can see it, but Gary can't. Noah Bokin has got aces. He's got the best possible starting hand you can have, and this is why Gary needs to protect himself. He's only got pocket fours.
I'm all in.
All in.
Gary announces he's all in.
I've got pocket fours. He's all right against one player as a coin toss, but with two of them in there, he knows he's going to see overcards. The chances of someone getting a higher pair are enormous. And I'm afraid Gary got greedy there, tried to frighten off Noah, and he should never have made that move.
So, Grub, do you have any other poker tips for us?
Yes, I do. There are plenty to learn, and perhaps one of the most important in a long tournament is the ability to change gears. You mustn't become predictable. If your opponents know that you're only going to raise with aces or kings, then they're just going to fold and you're not going to maximise your profits. If they know they can bully you, if they know you're a loose player, once they get a good identikit picture of you, then they'll find it much easier to exploit your weaknesses and indeed avoid your strengths. Then I'd also urge people to concentrate on their table. Sometimes if you're in a big tournament, lots of tables there, possibly with some famous players or perhaps one of your friends on another table, you can start